Let's just check stuff out here. I think we're golden. All right. Well, welcome to everybody who got up this early in the morning, which is exactly what I expected it to be. It's the first time trying it. I kind of expected as much. It's not too big a deal. This was supposed to be a podcast kind of done more for my own time rather than for the fans' time. It's for the idea that if things do actually start moving forward again, then perhaps maybe I do something on the weeknights. Just so that way everybody has a chance to. Because, I mean, it's 9 a.m. Eastern, so if you're on the Pacific, you're probably not even awake yet. But this is like one of the easiest times for me to record, so I figured it was the best way to go about it. So, with that being said, welcome to episode 3 of the Saturday Morning Soapbox. I believe this is actually the first one I'm doing live, at least on the proper times. I can't remember if I did the first 2 episodes live or if I did them as like a private live stream just so I didn't have to spend all the extra time editing it and just could quickly upload it. Either way, we're good to go here. I'm hoping this is going to be at most an hour. It could be shorter. It could be longer. It's always me. You never know. There's not too many things I want to talk about, at least in terms of quantity of topics. There's a few things that I definitely do want to go over that I've either been dying to talk about, this week, or stuff that, I've been trying to get after for a while. There's one topic in specific that I'm definitely going to probably go through a lot at the end of the show. The 2 big topics that I'm going to talk about today are going to be Dead or Alive 6 and the reaction that I've seen so far about it. And then obviously Kingdom Hearts 3 because I finished it yesterday and I want to talk a little bit about it before I do my full review article that I will write on the blog at some point this upcoming week. But with that being said, I just want to start off by just kind of going through, this long break. And it's been one of those things where it's strange in a way that it's gotten to this point again. I remember distinctively for like 6 months to a year, from now, or before now, I should say, that I've been looking forward over and over again to being able to do this kind of stuff again. In fact, pretty much since I started looking for places to move in the summer, this has been something that I've been planning on doing this entire time since I started. This specific show is an idea that I've had since the summer. And to be able to finally do it is one of the best feelings in the world, because at least it gives me, I guess, any sense of an idea that shit's finally going forward again. And like I said in the I'm Back video, I don't want to get too much into the specifics, but I mean, I can talk a little bit further. 2 months, or not 2 months, 2 years ago, around the time that you guys stopped seeing video content, and especially in terms of me having a webcam and everything, the place that I was living in, long story short, we couldn't afford to keep it anymore. And a lot of other things happened at the same time. And we just suddenly had to leave. And it was probably one of the worst moments that I've ever gone through in my life. One of the worst times I've gone through for many reasons. I mean, obviously, there were 2 of my best friends that all of a sudden we had to just give up on each other and just break away. And they've moved much further away. And I'm kind of just left on my own again. And it was one of those things where, for the time period that I knew that it was over, up until the actual moving day, it was probably some of the worst times I've ever had in terms of just sheer depression and stress and anxiety and just straight up sadness. Like, the worst part came out obviously on the moving day, because we had a number of cats in the house and none of them were mine. And they only were able to take one, and we couldn't find homes immediately for them. So we had to take them to a shelter, which meant, and these cats basically knew the 3 of us since they were born for the most part. Like 2 of them, I should say, were a little bit older, but 2 of the cats that we also had to get rid of basically knew the 3 of us since they were born, essentially. So you have to understand from the standpoint of these cats, basically their entire lives have known us and have known the house. So for us to suddenly take them from it, it was one of the most stressful things I've ever had to do. I've obviously had cats over the course of my life, but I've never actually been around one of them passed. My parents have always been the one that have found them and have, just kind of dealt with that. And for whatever reason, I guess because of that, I haven't had too much of an emotional response to it. Although generally speaking, I'm not the most emotional person. Like, my grandmother passed away last year and it did affect me, but not in the way of like emotionally like overflowing or anything like that. It's more along the lines of, oh man, like that was about it. With the cats though, in that moving process, because I had to be the one to physically do it and watch them obviously cry, meowing, and the look of despair on their faces, to think that they're being taken to their death, which I have no idea what happened to them, which is the part that haunts me still to this day, that I don't actually know if any of them ever found homes. And there's two of them specifically, that the older cats, that I figured would have a really hard time. So there's that worry that, they may, one or two of them, maybe even all of them may have passed, but some of them might have been natural. But it's very possible that any of those four that we got rid of and sent to a shelter may have been put down. And that's something that I kind of have to live with in terms of the unknown. And that entire time period, I got really sick a couple of times leading up to the move. And then the place I moved into, it was my girlfriend's place, but it ended up being a place that never really felt like my own. It was living with my girlfriend and her mother. And it was a situation that just never felt like home to me. Whereas even though I was living with my best friends, the house was big enough and I had my own spot, so I could feel like it was my place. Whereas in my girlfriend's place, there was never like my spot in the house. It was just me in the corner of the bedroom, like with my laptop. And there was never that sense that I was living in a place that was my own. I was not freeloading. I was boarding in someone else's home. And for 2 years, it was like that. And I never got the sense that it was ever mine. And because of that, I never felt truly happy. I had some good times during those 2 years, but I don't think they ever truly took place in that house. Because, apart from, I guess, like PlayStation party conversations and stuff that made me laugh, but in terms of things that I could obviously just call back from memory at any time and act like they were, like really amazing moments in my life, they always happened outside. And it was something that I never planned on going that long with. And it just kind of ended up working out that way, mostly because, it helped me financially, because I was not in the best place financially when I left the place that I was in for as long as I was. And it just worked out for a while. And then it eventually got to a point where, I wanted to have my own space because of things like, being able to establish my own spot. Like, this isn't even like, this room here is literally just acting as the stream room right now until I figure out what I'm actually going to do with it. My bedroom is the other bedroom. It's a 2-bedroom apartment, but everything feels like mine now. The kitchen is mine. Like, the fridge is filled with stuff for me. The freezer has stuff for me. Like, the living room is all my space. The bedroom is all my space. Like, everything is mine again. And because of that, it actually feels like a place that I can be calm. I can just chill out and just enjoy things again. And I think it's been a lot easier of a transition than I thought it would be. And I think a lot of it has to do with that. So much of the stuff that came back from the move is all stuff that was in the house before all this depression happened. So when I unpacked everything and started putting it all away, like the poster here and all my figurines and the bookshelves and everything, all the furniture, it was almost like I never left. Like, I've only been in this place. This is day 15 since I've moved in. This is only my third weekend with the apartment. And I noted to myself yesterday, actually, that it honestly feels like it's been months. Like, it already feels like it's been a long period of time. Now, as somebody who just turned 31, I hope it stays in that kind of sense of time, because I would love that every year feels more like 2 or 3 rather than 6 months, which is what I remember some of my 20s feeling like. But other than that, like, as I said in the I'm Back video, it's really nice to be able to come back and do stuff like this again, because it brings that familiarity back. It brings back almost, I guess, in a sense, nostalgia. And that's probably been the biggest help in my road of, kind of really getting rid of the depression that I've been carrying for almost 2 years, like actually probably 2.5 if you count the time that I knew leading up to having to move out. So, it's just one of those things that I'm just really happy that I was able to kind of get past. And now that, that's over and this has started, hopefully being able to do all this stuff on YouTube again and really being able to have the spring in my step to be able to write some more again. And because I did everything I could to try and keep content coming. And I tried on YouTube for a while. And what I would do is that I would record in my car because it was one of the very few times that I would be able to have like a quiet space. And what I would do is I would just get up earlier before work, drive not to my work, but to like the mall nearby where the parking lot was always empty. It wasn't too loud. And I would just record there. And the problem with that is that either when you get into the dead of summer, I can't turn the air conditioning or the engine on because that will make noise. Same goes for the winter. If it's going to be freezing or boiling hot in my car, it's going to make a really difficult environment to record in. So it just became that point where it wasn't going to work anymore. And I tried various things. I'm on a friend's stream once in a blue moon. That's hopefully going to start happening again now that I have a space again. I tried everything I could, at least on the video side, to make it work, and it just couldn't. So eventually I just kind of gave up on that. And I told myself, look, the second I move out and have a place again, then I can look at, restarting this whole process again. And that's kind of where that is now. In terms of the blog, it was right whenever you can. And I tried that and it didn't work because it started feeling like work. I didn't get a sense of wanting to write articles all the time. A lot of the things that I set weekly, I just didn't want to do anymore, including the anime reviews. And I'll say it right now, because I've been doing weekly anime reviews for 3 years. And this is my first season not doing it. And it's amazing because I can finally enjoy shows again. Because I think the problem was that I spent so much time watching shows thinking about, okay, these are the screen caps I'll take. This is the things I want to say and write about it. And now it's just like I'm watching it and enjoying it. And anything that I want to write about will come off by memory, because if it's that good, I'm going to remember. It's not going to be a case of, trying to recall things. I remember even at one point, I was legitimately writing what was happening live while I was typing it out. It was stupid. I don't understand where my head was at in that, because it never came off like I was trying, to even properly review it. It was more along the lines of I was just respouting what was already there. And now that it's like this, I mean, the blog is literally, I will write something when I have something I want to write about. I don't want to end up writing articles that feel like I'm forcing them. I don't want to write articles that I don't have that much interest in. Every time I post something on the blog, and that will go for here for a while, anything that I post on this channel, the intention is that it's something that I am 100% behind. I used to post stuff both in video form and in article form that was just, I have to do this to make it look like I'm still making content. Now I don't really give a shit about that part. I don't care if people come to the channel and then all of a sudden leave because they're thinking, he's only posting like once a week or once every 2 weeks. Like, what the fuck? I don't care. Like, this is a hobby. It's always been a hobby. There was a point where I guess I tried to take it somewhat seriously, and then I realized pretty quickly that I didn't have the time to do it. And if I wanted to have the time to do it, I was going to need a lot more money in my bank account, which I don't have. So that was not going to be an option. So this has now just become a point where it's, if I want to do something, that's when I'll do it. And the same goes for this show. Like, obviously, I have every intention to do this every Saturday morning because it's something that gets me a chance to vent and gets me a chance to just talk about stuff that I've been wanting to talk about. And I will keep doing that until it feels like I don't want to do it anymore. And if I don't want to do it anymore, then it stops. And if I say want to do it again, then I bring it back. That's how it'll work. I don't want to ever make content again with the feeling that, man, okay, fine, it's over and done with. Now it's, all right, I can't wait to do the next one. That's where I want to be at. Before I go on to the first topic, I did have, a brief thought that I don't know if I ever really wrote about. And it kind of came crystal clear to me the other day. And this is going to be like way off base. You're going to think, how the hell did he pull this up? There's no segue I can really do this. I guess it kind of falls into place on doing content the way I want to do it. But obviously, if you are familiar with the YouTube gaming scene in terms of the critiques and skepticism and stuff like that, you obviously had probably at one point heard about Total Biscuit. And if you know anything about Total Biscuit, he passed away last year. And that was one of those moments that I think really hit me. Because, I mean, I don't know if I've really talked about it, but TB is literally the person that got me into everything that I do on YouTube. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have had any interest in podcasting. Right around the time that I found the Game Station podcast, and I can't even tell you what year this was anymore. That's how much of a blur it is to me. But it was definitely before I moved in on my own for the first time. It was before that. I was still living under my parents' roof, and I came across the Game Station podcast. I don't even remember how. And when I first watched it, I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. It's just people just shooting the shit about games. It's just kind of the same kind of stuff that I do when I'm sitting in Xbox Live party chats when I was playing on the 360 back in the day. And not very long after that time, I had the sense of, man, it'd be really cool if I could do something like that. And then all of a sudden, one of my friends is like, hey, me and so-and-so are about to make a podcast, if you can listen here. And I was like, and I quickly messaged being like, do you have room for a third? And it just evolved from there. And it kept going and going. Eventually, I started doing my own show. Eventually, I tried doing Let's Plays. That didn't work out so well because I learned pretty quickly that on my own, I can't do that stuff because I focus too hard on the game and not enough on actually talking. So that went away quick. And it kind of evolved into me obviously starting the blog page and writing and more stuff on YouTube that I've done. And that's kind of kept it consistent. And, it's just one of those things that I just briefly wanted to talk about TB just because even though I've had my disagreements with him over the years because of various things, I cannot take away the fact that he is literally the reason that everything that I do now is because of him. And the reason that I kind of just came up with this topic for a moment is just because I hadn't paid any attention to the Co-optional podcast since the episode that they did after he passed away as like a memoriam. And I recently I don't know if I've either just missed them because sometimes YouTube doesn't have things show up on your feed, but I saw the newest episode they had recently. I haven't watched it. And I realized to myself, it's like, man, like that's how much him not being there has kind of affected it, is that I can't watch the show anymore. And I may try to, now that I really had this internal thought, I may actually try to watch one episode just to see if I can get back into it. Cause I'd love to still listen to Jesse and Dodger. And then not to mention, obviously Jenna was fine. It's just, it really is like having a hole missing in your heart about it. Cause the first time and the only time that I've watched that show without him was obviously the memoriam. And it was such a hard thing to get through because something was clearly missing and always will be now. And I just wanted to go over that quickly just because it was something that was fresh and I figured I'd mention just because, it's something to kind of get out of my system. But yeah, if there's anybody that I've seen in the YouTube scene that I will always miss so dearly, it's going to be him, because there was nobody that was more clear cut and had a bigger influence on what I kind of turned into over the last, I guess, 5 to 7 years. So anyway, away from all the personal and all the fucking depressing shit, I'll get to that last little bit at the end too. Let's quickly go over about Dead or Alive 6. And I have not played the game, and I probably won't play the game for an extended period of time. My problem with fighting games has always been the cost value. I don't play those games enough to feel like paying $60+ for a game of that kind of type is not going to work unless I was going to play it online a lot or play competitively. And because I won't, the sense of paying that much is just not going to work. Like hell, Dragon Ball Z Fighters is on for, I think, like $34 on the PlayStation Store right now. And I'm still looking at that being like, I can't justify that because I'll probably put 5 to 10 hours tops into it and that'll be it. So in the end, I probably will play Dead or Alive 6 at some point, but it's going to be a long ways away. It'll probably have to be like some $20 thing going on. But what I want to talk about in terms of the game has to do more with all the reviews that have been coming out for it. Now, the reviews have actually been extremely positive, which is a great thing because the game as a fighting game has always been really good. I had to admit, like, even when I played Dead or Alive Ultimate and you would look at like all the swimsuit costumes and stuff like that, when you really go down to do it, it's bare bones in a way, but that's what makes it so good, is because everything is so fluent because there isn't so much flash to it. And now people are kind of getting a sense of that because there's less jiggling. And that's the thing that's been really bugging me, is that everybody they've been talking very positively about the game, but they can't help themselves but to talk about how there's not so much boob jiggling in that game. Or in terms of there's not so many skimpy outfits and like that. Hell, there's even an article saying the season pass for Dead or Alive is only $90. And it's true. Only $90 sounds ridiculous for costumes, but for Dead or Alive, that's actually cheap when you think about it. Getting everything from the newest game, or from the previous game, I should say, Dead or Alive 5, even on sale, I think you would look at the entire costume set being $100. So I guess $90 in a way is kind of funny that it is actually cheap. But aside from that, it just drives me crazy that people can't help themselves but talk about the sexuality of it. And I've said it, I don't know if I've really talked about the series apart from the outrage that came from Dead or Alive Extreme 3, which I still want to buy in solidarity against the people that were trashing it so hard. The problem is I can't justify paying that much money for a game that I can just Google image search if I ever wanted to look at it. But it was infuriating to see so many reviews, because I was curious on how they react to it, because I had a feeling how it would go, and I was right. They still talk, like I said, positively about the game, but they had to spend so much time in their reviews talking about how it's so nice that it's not just boobs. And I'm like, it was never just boobs. It's just they obviously were a lot more prominent because the trailer, obviously there was that infamous trailer where they talked about, the guy holding the controller and the boobs jiggling. But the guys have always been pretty sexualized too. So it's it's just been a sexy game in general. And as I've said before, there's nothing wrong with that sort of content. And it goes down to the same idea, is if you don't like that sort of content, you are well within your right to not buy it or not partake in that content. Instead, you have all these reviewers and all these game journalists that have to pretend like it really offends them that there are women in that game that are scantily clad, as if there aren't women in Street Fighter that aren't scantily clad. Hell, it's not even as if there's people in Smash Brothers in terms of Bayonetta that aren't sexual in any form. Soul Calibur has it, Mortal Kombat has it, although Mortal Kombat's starting to get rid of some of it for whatever fucking reason. You can decapitate and dismember everybody, but a little bit of cleavage is too much now for Mortal Kombat. I don't know what the hell's going on there. Any fighting game in general, especially fighting games that come out of Japan, they're going to have sexuality. Because, by the way, I don't know if people in the West are ever going to understand this, but Japan does not give a flying fuck about what is going on there. They do not care. They have never cared about what the West thinks, and they probably never will, because the West isn't their target market. They just happen to send it out West, and they make extra money on top of what they make in Japan. And the idea that whether it's anime, whether it's video games, whether it's whatever, manga and everything that Japan exports our way, they feel like out in the West, we are the ones that have to change everything, where the reality is the only thing we should be changing is our own stuff. It's not our right. It's not even, we shouldn't even have the privilege to go out and tell another country that whatever is normal in their culture is not okay. It's one of those things where it's just dude, you got to relax. And that's obviously something that I'll talk a little bit more later, in terms of relaxing. But in this specific case, I just have to say it. If your intention of writing a review for Dead or Alive 6 includes having to talk about, the sexuality's toned down, take your journalism badge, whatever the fuck you want to call it, and revoke it. That's not important. You're reviewing the game. The game, in terms of content, is important of a fighting game variety, in that you talk about the mechanics and the moves and the actual balancing of the game. If the game happens to have a character that's too sexy, that's not part of your review. You can make a separate article that notes about this stuff, but your review should not have nothing to do with that. That suddenly makes your review more of an opinion piece than it does a review, a critique. It's not that anymore if you're going to spend half of your fucking review talking about how, the game has a history of really annoying women and feminists because of all the sexual content. Shut the fuck up. Get on with the review. I'm not here to listen to you ramble on about a bunch of shit that has nothing to do with whether the game is good or not. Throughout the entirety of the Dead or Alive franchise, if I was to ever review one of those games, whether it was from 1 all the way to today at 6, I would never take my review as a part of whether there's sex in it or not. Now, the extreme games, that's a different fucking story. If you want to talk about the sex in the extreme games, that makes sense because that's literally the selling feature of the game. Dead or Alive is still a fighting game through and through. So why are we spending so much time talking about the jiggle physics? Why are we talking about that when there are so many games out there like Guilty Gear, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat that have always had a sexual aspect to it in terms of how the characters look? Specifically the women, you could say, but I mean, the guys have always had some deals. But at the end of the day, like, no one ever reviews Guilty Gear XRD or Street Fighter 5 and talking about, oh, Cammy's ass. Like, oh my God, they're still doing this. They don't talk about that. But Dead or Alive has to have that. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Why is that the one game that you have to do? Is it because of the beach volleyball? Is it because of that infamous jiggle physics commercial? And if that's the case, maybe grow up a little bit, because why are you spending so much time worrying about that when as you say, as I've said, as I've seen a lot of people say in their reviews, it's finally toned down. And if that's the case, why are you still having to spend so much time talking about it? If it's toned down and it's not as easily noticeable anymore, why are you spending all that time talking about it? Because it sounds to me like you're still butthurt about the games previous. And if you were going to review a game with that level of butthurt still active, then you need to not review that game and give it to somebody else who will do it properly. And if you can't find anybody to do it properly, then you need to shut down as a company, because if you can't find one person that can review a game without any bias and non-objectively, then you don't need to be around anymore, because no one needs to listen to you. All right, next up, Kingdom Hearts 3. Allow me to gush for a moment. I don't know whether to call it the best Kingdom Hearts game that I've ever played, because I'm not sure how to take the way that I feel about this game in comparison to the way I felt about the first or the second when I was still in high school. That's the problem here. When I look at Kingdom Hearts 3, I get the sense that I'm taking the value of it having more to do with the nostalgia factor than I do the actual game, although the game itself is amazing too, but so is Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. So I think it's a matter of saying, I think Kingdom Hearts 2 is the better of those two original PlayStation 2 games. If I take Kingdom Hearts 2 and I take Kingdom Hearts 3, I honestly believe that they're on an even level. The difference is the emotional value is different. So whatever high that I'm getting from Kingdom Hearts 3 is not the same high that I got from Kingdom Hearts 2. Kingdom Hearts 2, I think, was more of an awe and in like surprise kind of deal. Kingdom Hearts 3 is literally just, I feel so comfortable because everything's back. Because I never played, actually that's a lie, I tried to play Birth by Sleep, couldn't get into it. I've never played 358 under 2 days and all the other stuff, the mobile games, the browser games and all that stuff. I couldn't get into because it's, I don't, that's not my market. I don't care about the mobile gaming market, really. So to finally have Kingdom Hearts 3 in my hands after really not playing a Kingdom Hearts game since Kingdom Hearts 2 was probably the best feeling that I've ever had. And, you know, from the moment that I started, I nearly teared up just hearing the Don't Think Twice orchestra version at the start of the game. That alone really kind of hit me. And I was really happy about that. Probably my best moment was the Toy Story world. And because the music was perfect, the setting is amazing. Like, I can't believe how good that game looks today. You know, obviously now having the technology and I think it was under the Unreal 4 engine, if I remember correctly, like being able to make them look so closely like the films and the subject material really helps. And I guess because Toy Story really has that extra nostalgia, because I never watched Tangled. Big Hero 6 I really liked, and obviously Frozen I ended up liking. And Pirates of the Caribbean I enjoyed to an extent, but Toy Story is one of those ones that not only did I enjoy, but it was so long ago that it's now extra nostalgia. The only thing they obviously could have made it better is if they had most of the voice actors. Obviously, they couldn't get Tom Hanks and Tim Allen to reprise Woody and Buzz, but I mean, what are you going to do? Like, the amount of money they probably would have had to ask for, or the amount of money they would have to pay them. Sorry, it would have been too much. But at the end of the day, if there was ever a game, if you were in your like mid to late 20s, 30s, maybe even 40s, that game really does take like nostalgia to a whole new level. I don't think I've ever played a game that has hit me so much with nostalgia as Kingdom Hearts 3 did. And without spoiling anything, because I'm going to do that in my full review. The game at several points, mostly at the end, and in fact, there's 2 moments back to back that legitimately made me tear up, because obviously it's been a long journey, and for them to actually close things up and to tie up those loose ends, and for them to not necessarily be like a dark ending, for them to actually be like really happy and really satisfying. I got to tell you, from all fronts, I mean, the story can be a bit of a mess. The final bosses, it could have been better, but I mean, it's not the worst. And obviously, with what they're setting up for the series to continue forward, I mean, obviously, as most people, if you've kept up, know, Kingdom Hearts 3 is the end of the saga that we have had since the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 1. It takes everything from Birth by Sleep, 358 in under 2 days. All of that stuff that you have played up until this point is tied up. The story that obviously we are seeing with like the Foretellers and the Master of Masters, that is what is probably going to be moving forward as the next saga in the Kingdom Hearts series. And again, without spoiling too much, obviously the 2 final scenes that you'll see in the game, excuse me as I just kind of clear up my eye a bit here. Holy crap, it's itchy as hell. The 2 final scenes that you'll see in that game set up what I believe will be the story for the next series. And I think the actual final like super secret scene that you have to get like a certain amount of lucky emblems to see, I actually feel like that scene is going to have more to do with a DLC or just a small side game than it will, say, a Kingdom Hearts 4. I think the final scene that you see that isn't counting the secret scene that you need the lucky emblems for, that like actual final scene before the credits roll is what will be the Kingdom Hearts 4 plot that goes into, I don't know how many games that will go for, but that is going to be the main plot. Whatever happens in that secret video, I think is going to be a side game. It'll either be DLC or it'll be a side game, one of the two. But all in all, I've got to tell you, like, that game as a whole is probably some of the most fun I've had in a while playing a video game, because it was one of those things that I could just kick back and enjoy. And it drive me really crazy to see some of the things that I was seeing about it, you know, in terms of critiques and stuff, where people are saying, oh, the story is such a mess, nothing really makes sense. You know, it's just most of the time you're really just winning by, you know, just tapping X over and over again. And, you know, sometimes it feels like, you know, things are a little uninspired. And I'm like, okay, well, the uninspired thing, you're full of shit. But the story being a mess, or it mostly just being a mash X fest and just going crazy. Have you never played Kingdom Hearts before? That's been Kingdom Hearts in a nutshell. No one plays Kingdom Hearts because of the extremely like engaging and complex story that's so easy to understand. No, the story has never made any sense. You play it because you get to play alongside Disney characters, and I guess in this case, not Final Fantasy characters. That's the one complaint that I will absolutely give. It drives me nuts that none of the Final Fantasy characters that have been in the series exist in this game. To not have a world that I can play alongside a Final Fantasy character like I did with Auron in Kingdom Hearts 2 during the Underworld world in the Hercules series, that makes me sad. And the fact that we don't see Leon or Yuffie or Aeris or YRP, or there isn't even a Sephiroth battle. I wonder if that's going to be a DLC that they work on. I don't know. But man, to not have that there is so weird, because I guess we're so accustomed to it. But I mean, in terms of the story's always been a wash. It's literally just hanging out in Disney worlds and kicking the shit out of Disney characters. Now, I will say this, and I don't really have too much of a problem with it, but I can understand why some people do. There aren't really Disney bosses in this game. And the reason for that, if that takes you a little off, it's because this game is literally tying up every loose end in terms of the Darkseeker saga, which is obviously Master Xehanort, Organization 13. That is the focus. So they aren't going to be having you fight, like, say when you're in the Frozen world, you're not fighting, I believe Hans is the end villain. You're not fighting Hans. I think actually the Hades world is the only one that you're truly. Actually, no, that's a lie. The Pirates of the Caribbean one, you're fighting Davy Jones because it's the At World's End story. Hercules, you're fighting some of the Titans. You don't ever fight Hades, which is kind of disappointing. Tangled, you're not fighting. I can't remember her full name, but the mother. You're not doing that. Big Hero 6 is its own. I don't know if it's actually like a canon story in any way, because I don't know if it has anything to do with the TV show, but it has nothing to do with the film. It's post the film. So there's nothing there that relates to the film. I'm trying to think. I must be missing. Oh, Monsters Inc. No, it's its own boss. I know I'm missing one. Oh, and Toy Story. Toy Story is the one that they had a chance to do something really cool and they didn't. But it's whatever. But in actuality, like, as much as it would have been cool to fight Disney villains, I think because some of these new films have been a lot more realistic, and a lot of the ones that they've used, in fact, have been a lot more realistic, like Toy Story, Monsters Inc., Frozen, Tangled. Like, do any of them really have like a tangible villain? Like Aladdin, obviously you can face Jafar because Jafar has magic on his side and he turns into a fucking genie. I will admit the Tarzan one with Clayton is a bit weird. Like, Clayton should not be that much of a bullet sponge. You hit a regular human in the face enough times, he's going to go down. But like, say, Ursula and the Little Mermaid, obviously, again, like, magic plays a big part in a lot of these villains that you could fight in the original Kingdom Hearts games. But I think in this one, it doesn't quite work the same way because a lot of it is literally just fighting like a normal human. So like I said, with the Clayton thing, it doesn't make too much sense. But I figured there's ways around that. But in this case, like, it didn't necessarily bother me. And in fact, some of the boss battles that they do instead end up being really cool. Like, there's a couple really interesting ones that happen. And the Toy Story ones in specific are really interesting and I really enjoyed. In all sense, like, the worlds are all relatively good. Like, they all have their unique gimmicks. I think the only one that I was kind of disappointed by would have been the Frozen one, because I thought they could have done a little bit more with it. And in fact, I don't like the fact, and I guess this is somewhat of a spoiler, they made it look like in the trailer that Elsa might have been in your party, and that's not true. The snow giant that she gets, I can't remember his name. He's the your party member in that world, and it was kind of disappointing because I wanted to see a little bit more with that. But Toy Story World was amazing. Corona was actually really fun. Pirates of the Caribbean was incredible. Like, it's almost like Pirates of the Caribbean world in Kingdom Hearts is like a light version of Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Like, that was so cool to be able to have ship battles, to just go sailing to different islands, finding stuff and whatever else, except for that ghost ship that randomly, apparently it's not even like a set place for the battle. It just shows up and it's a very difficult fight. I never actually finished it. It's one of those, there's a couple of things I didn't finish in Kingdom Hearts 3. I probably won't platinum it because I don't platinum most games, but there's a lot to like in that world alone. Monsters Inc. surprised me. I actually had a lot of fun with that world, even though I don't like the subject material at all. And what's the one world I'm missing here? Big Hero 6 was fine. I was a little disappointed with that one just because there wasn't so much going on with it. But either way, like, as a whole, the game was just overall incredible. Like, I would probably rate that game overall a 9 out of 10, and that's probably what I'll come to when I do the written review. But again, like I said, I don't think I can ever put Kingdom Hearts 2 or 3 above the other because I think they both are really good games mechanically, and I think the emotional value, I can't distinguish between the two because they're so different. And also, I haven't played Kingdom Hearts 2 in, 15 years, so I don't really quite remember how I felt about when I played that. I remember skipping my last period class so I could walk all the way from school to my store to go buy it, so that way I could get it home fast enough that my parents wouldn't notice that I came home with a video game, because at that time, my parents really didn't like the fact that I play games. Hell, they still don't, but obviously I'm a grown adult that can't really stop me now. Whereas when I'm like 15, 16 years old, they have a little bit more of a say and would give me a little more shit about it. But all in all, like, if you're a Kingdom Hearts fan, like, this is a no-brainer. This game will make you so goddamn happy. And if you're new to the series, I mean, you can still enjoy this game. Just, there's like some really good videos that explain the entirety of the story so you don't get too lost. Even then, like, I watched them a couple of times just to freshen up on the Birth by Sleep and 358 in under 2 days. Like, because I'm not familiar with Xehanort and Arrakis and Terra, Aqua, and Ventus, and I'm not too familiar with Xion. But because I watched all those videos, I was at least understanding enough to know, okay, when certain moments happen in the game that slowly come up towards the end, like that's how much they matter. And I understand the context to them, which helps. But I mean, realistically, like it's just a fun game where you're going through 6 Disney worlds, I believe. I think it's 6. And then you get to the end where there's a few really awesome fights, and that's it. I think I was just over 50 hours when I finished, or just over or just under. And it was well worth it. If I wanted to, I could go back and finish a few more things and maybe work on. I haven't done the battle gates yet, mostly because I'm just like at that point that I don't really have too much motivation to play anything right now. I'm kind of in this weird space where I'm waiting for MLB 19 the show. Yeah, that's crazy. I'm waiting for a fucking baseball game to get me back into playing games. Like I'm looking at a lot of stuff that I have on my download list that I got either in PlayStation Plus or I download on sale, and I'm not feeling it. I guess I'm in this weird space where I just don't want to play anything right now. It kind of sucks because I'm getting bored really easily. But Kingdom Hearts 3 brought me out of that little bit of a sense, and I was very, very happy to play through it, and I loved it. And to whether a brand new fan or an old fan, this game is definitely worth it. If you're a new fan, maybe wait for a sale price just in case that it gets too complicated and you have a really hard time with the story, so it reduces your value a little bit. Maybe wait for it to maybe drop to like $40-50, but at that point it's definitely worth it. So there's that. So I'm going to take a quick swig here because I've been talking for 40 minutes now. Pink lemonade, motherfucker. So I'm just going to quickly end the show with talking about something that's been bugging me for a while, and this has been going on for maybe about a year, but the last couple of months, especially in this new year, have kind of brought that to my attention. I mentioned a little bit during the I'm okay or the I'm back video that we need to talk a little bit more because what's happening now is not very good, and I want to elaborate on that. In the last 6 months specifically, it's gotten a lot worse for me. I don't like either side anymore. I used to be what you would consider an anti-SJW, and in a way, I guess I still am because I'm very much against the social justice movement. However, it's a little bit different now, whereas I don't like what we call the anti-SJW side either, because the anti-SJW side is now becoming a very extreme side of the debate as well. I'm really I like the word centrist because I see things on both sides. And I also see that both sides are royally fucking this whole conversation up. And it's not even a debate. It's literally a fight. It's a pissing contest now. Obviously, I will never like what the social justice left does because they're censoring. They're not willing to talk to anybody that isn't their own. And honestly, they're trying to get involved in things that they don't really have too much interest in. Like recently, I see how people are reacting to Baptiste, the new Overwatch hero, how it's a guy. And I said, it's a person of color. So if you are still complaining that it's a guy, I am willing to go and bet that there is a 99.9% chance that you do not play Overwatch if you are complaining about Baptiste. Because if you really are big into Overwatch, you're happy because that's another new character. That's all that should be important to you. And if you're complaining about the gender of that character, then you clearly don't actually play the game because you don't actually seem to care too much about the game itself. Because the gender of a character shouldn't matter. And in fact, the color of the character shouldn't matter. It's a little irritating to the idea that I don't think we'll ever see another white male character in the game. We may not even see another white female character. It's very possible. But that's not even too big a deal because whatever, like there's more than enough characters in Overwatch that if you were trying to associate with your own color, there's plenty of white characters in the game that you can go with. It's fine. Who gives a shit? But it's the reactions of the left, like in this case alone, that just shows me that it's just not good right now. And normally that's where it would end. A couple of years ago when I was doing like my anti-Anita video that I did a while ago that I went back and watched some of my old stuff. I love that video still. Now, though, it's different. Now I look at what the anti-SJW side does, and I look, you guys are fucking ruining it for the rest of us. This is the side that likes to toss around the words cuck, libtard, and all that fucking jargon. These are the kinds of people that are just as trigger happy as the left is whenever they see something they don't like. When I see something, I usually try to sit on it for a moment, kind of collect my thoughts, and then try to be a little more objective about it and try to actually like really have a good conversation about it rather than just being like, fuck these guys, fuck this shit. Whereas the anti-SJW side right now is literally just fighting back. Like they're and by fighting back, I don't mean like trying to debate things, down to, a calmness or a compromise. No, they're just straight up fighting back. Like the left is launching a punch and they're launching back a punch of their own. Like that's not how we're supposed to be doing these things. And it really came out when Joe Rogan had the CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, on. For those of you that don't know who Joe Rogan is, I'd be wondering how the hell you found me then if you don't know who Joe Rogan is. But, either way, Joe Rogan, some of you may know as a comedian. Some of you may know him as a guy who does UFC commentary. He's also a guy that used to be the host of Fear Factor way back in the day. A show that I remember thinking, man, I would be okay with doing the stunts, but you want to make me eat bugs, you can go fuck yourself. But he's been doing a podcast called The Joe Rogan Experience for a long time. And I only really became aware of it in the last year or so. And he has everybody on it. Oh, I should say everybody except for the social justice left because they won't go on shows like that. But he'll have anybody on, really. Like he's had Ted Nugent on, Alex Jones, Jordan Peterson, and he had David Lee Roth on the other day. So we'll have a mixture of either celebrities to talk about stuff, or he'll have actual political pundits or anybody who want to get into the really dark stuff that's going on right now in terms of our society. And he had the CEO of Twitter on because obviously there's the situation with Twitter where it comes to banning people. Although Joe admitted in a post show, because he had to after the reaction of that podcast, that his intent was more to just ask Jack about what it's like handling the overload that Twitter has been in terms of the political discussion. And people got really upset on the anti-SJW side that he didn't go at Jack Dorsey with an iron fist and try to get answers out of him in terms of why all these people are being banned. And they made the excuse that, well, when he had Sargon of Akkad on or Candace Owens on or people of that ilk, he went a lot harder on them. Well, shouldn't that be obvious why? They're YouTubers or commentators that speak at universities. Who is Jack Dorsey? He's the CEO of fucking Twitter. Now, I don't know if people understand this, but somebody of that position is going to be a little more tight on things. So if Joe said one thing that really got under Jack's skin, Jack can just walk out the fucking door. He doesn't give a shit. He didn't have to give Joe this interview. And in fact, he's going to do another one from what I understand. Jack didn't need to do that either. Jack never needed to go on any of these shows. He's a CEO of a fucking company. He doesn't have to do these things. He can just be a prick and sit behind his company and make a fuck ton of money and just be done with it. But he went on these shows. He went on, oh my God, why am I blanking on his name? It's not Jordan Peterson. It's the other, Sam Harris. There we go. He went on his show and did stuff. And I don't know what else Jack's done since. Those are the two that I know of. But Jack never had to do these things. And the fact that people got so upset that Joe didn't go at him, it's dude, Joe doesn't have to go at him. And in fact, it's probably better that he didn't because he got some answers out of Jack that we wouldn't have gotten in the first place. Now, sure, did Jack skirt around things and probably either lie or twist words a little bit to make it look better? Sure, of course he does. He's a fucking CEO of a company that he's trying to protect. But it was never Joe's responsibility, nor does he ever have to do these kind of things. He could literally tomorrow say, you know what, I'm not doing any more politics stuff. I'm just going to have friends and comedians and good celebrities on. We're just going to talk about their craft. He could do that tomorrow, and that's well within his right. The idea that people kept calling him a shill or obviously doing what they do, they called him a cuck and stuff like that. You are the reason that this debate between the left and the right has not moved and is in fact getting worse. You are the reason that it's gotten worse. The left is the reason that it started, and now you guys are the reason that it's gotten 10 times worse than what it ever should have become. So at the end of the day, all I want to really say is that both of you, that includes the SJWs and the anti-SJWs, you both need to do one of two things. You either need to calm the fuck down and start talking to each other a little bit, or you just need to shut the fuck up because you're not helping anymore. You need to figure out when to keep your mouth shut a little bit because you apparently can't stop yourself. Whereas the amount of stories that I read, say on N4G every day that piss me the fuck off, if I commented on them, every single thing that I saw, my God, I would not be a very good person to be around by the looks of it. But instead, I know to internalize that shit and not have to suddenly go on a fucking tirade every time something happens. I really do not ever want to have to talk about the Jesse Smollett's thing. I don't want to really ever have to talk about the Covington thing. The Covington thing I couldn't avoid, but it was for a different purpose. I wrote an article about that because that story made me feel like I can't trust anybody anymore. The Smollett's thing is just a case of I don't want to talk about it because it's not fucking worth my time to really go into it, because I think the case itself speaks for what needs to be said. I don't think I need to comment further on the ridiculousness that thing was. But other stories, like say in the gaming news, where people are taking shots at certain things, or like every time I see a story, it was like, oh, Sony has censored this thing, and people just get so upset. And it's like, guys, you need to back off a little bit. I understand that censoring things is not the best idea, but if you're going to pitch a shit fit every single time it happens, you're not going to bring the correct response, because all they are going to look at is see a bunch of whining and bitching. And that's what the left, the social justice left, is supposed to be known for, not the anti. We were supposed to be the calm ones. And now I have to drift away from the anti-SJW side because whatever that label has been given to is not what I stand for anymore. Instead, it's something that I need to distance myself from because it looks childish and it looks ridiculously hateful. Just as bad as the social justice left has become. And still is, and will only get worse as well. Because the anti is now leading them on even further. It was fun when we used to just troll them. It was fun when we used to just point out how silly it was. Now we're attacking too. And I shouldn't say we because I'm not a part of it anymore. You guys need to look in the mirror too. You always tell the social justice left need to look in the mirror. You need to as well now, because you have become the very thing you hate. The difference is you guys think differently, but you are acting in the exact same way. The difference is like I've said in conversations with people, because I've always had conversations with people about the social justice left, and they will be like, well, you know, the right does these things too. I'm like, yeah, but you have to understand the left right now has most of the media coverage. You're not going to see nearly as much on the right because they don't have all the channels that they can go through. But at the end of the day, they're both acting just as childish. And that is the problem now, is that no one is doing the right thing anymore. And if we can't be responsible anymore, then we need to stop. Simple as that. Simple and clean. Because I got to go with a little bit of Kingdom Hearts to finish it. You guys need to all stop. Stop yelling at everything and stop yelling at each other, because clearly we are headed towards a much more violent society in this upcoming decade. Because I feel, and I've said it in an article, I feel like it's only going to get worse to the point that we may actually have violence in the streets. And I'm not talking Charlottesville where like one person died. No, I'm talking tens, hundreds, maybe even thousands. It's to a point that I believe the following will happen. At some point, some crazy on either side, because here's the thing, I don't know which side this is going to come from, but some major figure, whether it's a celebrity, a politician, a commentator, like a Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro type, someone that is a major part of a side of the debate is going to be assassinated, is going to be killed. And it's going to be caught on camera. And whichever side has that victim is going to kill someone in response. And that's how it will start. I hope I'm wrong. But every time that I thought it was going to get better, it hasn't. Every time I thought it was going to get better, it's gotten 10 times worse. And at this point, the only way it's going to get any worse than it is right now is by actual violence. And I think we are very close to that. Mark my words. If Trump actually gets reelected, and I'm not saying that we should not elect Trump. I'm just saying, because I don't know who the left or the Democrat nominee is going to be. And if it's something just as bad, then God only knows. But if Trump gets reelected, I guarantee you somebody on the left is going to do something. They're going to do something very violent. I see it. I hope I'm wrong, but I see it. You know, looking at what I've seen in the last really 3 or 4 years tells me that if Trump wins again, I thought when Trump won the first time, it would get better because it would make the Democrats look in the mirror a little bit. That didn't happen. So by history, I see if Trump gets elected twice, they're going to now not only double down, they'll triple down. And I think we will see violence. So I think it's time that before we get to that election point, folks, that we need to take a moment and kind of relax. We really do. I'm not even American, and I have to look at this and be like, I don't pay attention to what goes on anymore in both American and Canadian politics because it's not worth the stress anymore. You know, I will simply go into like the prime minister election when it comes up here in Canada. I will literally just look at the speeches. I will watch one of the debates, maybe in second one. I don't know how the schedule will go with it, but I'll watch it. And the person I will vote for will be the person that I feel appeals to what I feel is right. It will have nothing to do with past history. It will have nothing to do with the infighting. It will literally just have to do with you appeal to my values more than all the other candidates, so you get my vote. That's it, and I'm not going to dwell on it because it's gotten to a point where it's stressful and painful to keep dwelling on that shit, and I don't want to do that anymore. So my suggestion is that you guys try to follow the same as best you can. I'm not telling you to not be involved anymore, but I think we all need to kind of take a step back and relax a little bit. And it's really helped my my stress levels by not getting so involved with every single news story that comes up because it drives me crazy. Maybe it had more to do with just how long I've spent under that bubble of insanity. And now that I've drifted away from it and I only come back to it once in a blue moon, it's been a lot better. And I will never be able to fully take myself away from it because some of these stories affect the things that I love the most, especially the gaming and anime stories. They affect the things that I love the most. And if somebody's going to take shots at the things I love, especially gaming, which brought me out of depression when I was a teenager being bullied every single day at school. If you're going to tell me that thing that probably kept me from ever thinking about suicide, if all of a sudden it's a bad thing and I should be ashamed for liking it, I'm going to fight you at every step. But I'm not going to leap at every single thing you say anymore because it's not worth to do so. And I hope that you guys can follow me in that. And hopefully as I do these shows every week, you'll see that part of me is staying true, that I'm not going to jump out at everything that somebody says. I'm going to take things that just kind of bug me the most and still be very much calm about it and down the middle about it. Because my goal is to never yell when I do these shows. That's my goal. And I've done it for the first episode, and I will be very happy if I can keep it like that. So with that being said, I'm going to end the show off here. So first episode of the Saturday Morning Soapbox that's live is in the books. I'm very pleased to be able to do these things again, like I said before. If you are unfamiliar to my blog page, you can go to askcsradical.com and check out things there. Obviously, if you like what you're seeing here, like and subscribe to the channel to get more. I do plan on doing this every Saturday at 9 a.m. Eastern. If things start to move forward again, who knows how far down the road. Maybe I'll start doing a weeknight stream, not sure when. If I start doing streams with my friend Fenris, who I'll link to whenever I start doing streams with him again on my Twitter, obviously that's CS Radical on Twitter as well, I will do so. I'm trying to do as much content as I can in the time period that I do, but I also want to make sure that I'm leaving myself room to just do the things that I enjoy too, like watching anime and gaming and that kind of stuff. I don't want to turn this into I'm spending more time here and not doing anything that will also be fun otherwise. So thanks for watching the video on demand, because obviously nobody watched this live. I fully expect that I may not get somebody watching this live for a long time, which, again, I've said before in various videos, it's not a big deal to me. Again, this is a hobby to me and something fun that I get to do. And if it ends up turning into something later down the road, that's awesome. But this is just something that I get to do to kind of let some of the creativity flow out of my brain that's just kind of sitting there doing nothing. So once more, because I'm terrible at saying goodbye, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for coming back to the channel or being new to the channel. And I will see you later down the road. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a good one.